I recently ran across a video that was done on a platform that I like to follow, and it talked about a little bit about indoctrination into cults. It was very creatively done. It was very well put out, and it sort of skimmed the surface of indoctrination into cults. So what I'd like to do is show you the 8 tactics that you would want to um, deploy onto an unsuspecting society if you were interested in indoctrinating someone into the corona cult. So the first step or the first tactic that you would deploy would be information control. So ultimately control of information. So you have this philosophy, you have this corona cult that you would like to bring more cult members into. So what you are going to do is you are going to control the media, control social media, so that everything about the media and social media is about the coronavirus, corona control, complete control, absolute information control. And if anybody comes along and says, I don't think that this is a good idea, you make sure that they don't have a platform. You make sure that they don't go onto corporate media or come across your TV or get across your news feed. So step one is information control. And step two is information manipulation. So manipulation of that information, meaning that you will, uh, through social media, you will define the terms based on your own criteria, based on your own marketing plan. You will manipulate what people see and when they see it. If somebody who is researching about the coronavirus tends to go to the New York Times and NPR a lot, what you will do then is deploy and manipulate more information to them that tends to support what NPR and the New York Times say. So that's manipulation of the information. Within manipulation of information, you want to include the idea of spontaneity. That the coronavirus had simply come out of nowhere and it was a surprise, when in truth, there have been multiple simulations and lots of planning to curate and really deploy the concept of the coronavirus long before it actually hit the media. So the idea of spontaneity, when actually it's been simulated and practiced and curated and controlled for years, is important too when manipulating the information. Step three is isolation. So, forcing people into their own homes, stay at home orders, sheltering in place. Uh, this is what I would do to indoctrinate people into the coronavirus or into the corona cult. Um, is I would have this demand for isolation, this demand for separation. Isolationism is really interesting because it's also a purifying time, and fire is also a sign of purity. So I would also be deploying more information that has maybe newsreels of things that have caught fire, like buildings or homes. So I would, during this time of isolation, which is step three, this demand for isolation, I would be deploying maybe little news stories like that. Um, and I would also just keep reiterating over and over again that, it's very important that we isolate and that we keep ourselves pure from, people that are possibly infected with a pandemic, or you could possibly be infected with the pandemic. And I make this, idea that isolationism is the most important thing that you could do. It's paramount to keeping everybody safe. So everybody is alone and they don't have the influence of anyone else around them to maybe talk differently or talk some sense into them. And during this time of isolation, I would also be promoting, and this goes into step four, I would be promoting self awareness. I would be encouraging a live stream videos on Facebook, I would be saying things like, well, you can't go to your office anymore, so let's encourage everybody to have their office meetings through Zoom or Skype. I would, everything would be funneled onto the screens, onto your computers. And it's this time of sort of confession that I would be encouraging more and more uh, self-aggrandizing behavior and create sort of a narcissistic um, culture out of this step 4 phase. Step 5 is to then, as you're building up through step 4, through step 3 and 4, which is the isolationism, the purity, and then the building up of the egos and the narcissism, and forcing people to go live on Facebook because they're bored, and thus confessing all these things about themselves which they may normally not do. I would then be deploying the sacred science. I would put out experts in their field, statisticians with fancy graphs, intimidating words by doctors, militant task force coordinators, people who are very intimidating looking, people that are, experts in their field. They're the sacred science. They're the truth, the absolute truth with a capital T. I would be deploying those people in step 5 as, the experts that everybody should listen to. In step 6, it's something called loading the language. What I would do then is I would create hashtags and phrases that are catchy. I might even incorporate little songs to go with them, like stay at home, shelter in place, socially distance. So that would be step 6. And I would add to step 6 that not only would I create these easily remembered terms and phrases and cliches, I would also encourage some sort of outward spectacle, something that would show to the world that you belong to the cult, that you're one with the cult, that you're one with the philosophy of the cult of Corona. And as we know, in all cults, usually there's something to indicate that a person is in a cult. Some people have to wear their hair a certain way. Some people have to wear certain clothes. Some people can't eat certain foods or drink certain drinks. You know, uh, that's part of the indoctrination into a cult. That's part of the process. And so, for instance, in the Corona cult, I would say maybe everybody should wear a mask, something to cover their face, something to cover their mouth or their nose, cover half their face. And what this does then is that leads you into step 7. And step 7 is where indoctrination or doctrine of the philosophy of the Corona cult takes over personhood. So with the mask on and the indoctrination period that you have had through steps 3, 4, 5, and 6, you have developed into this new person where everything that you are and everything that you belong to is now part of this larger vision, this larger cult, this thing that has taken over your personal individuality. So you were somebody different before Corona. Now you're somebody you've gone through the purity process. You've gone through the indoctrination. You've been taught and how to think, or not how to think, but what to think. You've had all of the experts tell you what to think. So now you are a new person, and the whole doctrine of the Corona and the language of Corona has now taken over your entire person. You no longer are an individual. You belong to the cult of Corona. And once you are in the cult of Corona, the very last step is step 8, and that is to integrate. So once you're a completely new human being and you're what's considered after Corona, you can now integrate into society, one with your cult members, all wearing the mask, all believing the the theories, all believing the doctrine of the Corona cult. And you can, at this point, is when you dispense and when you integrate into society, um, as this skilled and self-righteous person who has, sheltered in place and done all the right things, and you wear the mask and you absorb the doctrine. You can then point out people who don't, and you can, um, either try to convince them to join your cult, or you can shun them, or you can call the police on them, or whatever. But because you are part of the cult, you have been given permission to take over other people's lives. And that is how I would um, deploy these 8 tactics to indoctrinate people into the Corona cult.
Thank you for watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. If you really like our work, you can help support us on a regular basis by going to patreon.com/bookofhours. For as little as $2 a month, you can sustain us and keep us working. You can also make a one-time donation at paypal.me/bookofhours. Thank you.